I want to talk to you today about the sovereign family operating system. I will tell you just what my observation was over the last couple of weeks and months, and what's the reason or why I come to the conclusion to set up an architecture framework for a family operating system. So, we face at this time, or in other words, we stay on a crossroad in regards that we have a completely different generation, maybe in front of us, who will take over a lot of power. And what I mean by a lot of power is just they are the inheritors of these great wealth transfer, or what I called the great wealth handover. This generation has, by and large, very little to do with their parent generation. They are mainly from the boomers or from the silent generation. These newer generation are acting more with deeper intentions, looking for more impact, and also have greater control over their environment, but also over their power. And undoubtedly, this generation has seen a lot of struggles, a lot of problems, a lot of conflicts in their own family, but also in other families or at their parents. For instance, this great issue on succession, or what I call the transition. You know, if we start to change a little bit our vocabulary, we have another influence and another impact on the other side or on the other individual. So succession for me itself, something will end, but that is not in the core of succession. Therefore, I use the term transition. It will be continually further growing. And solving these challenges just even better as the parent generation, often the question arises, is there any framework available? Is there any systematic approach available that we as a newer generation can solve these challenges just even better? Because that we secure our continuity, our power, our influence, and also our relevance. And I give you a little story in the background, what I've done. If I come through these discussions with raising gens, and also I don't use the term next gen. Nobody wants to be the next. I use the term raising gen. That is, from my opinion, just the right word, what we should use. So coming back to the point, I've read, maybe you are also familiar with the book from Dennis Jaffe, Borrowed from Your Grandchildren, a very fascinating book. And if you don't have read it, that should be stand in your library. What Dennis have done was an excellent research on the best of the best families around the globe. What are actually the key components that they are distinguish themselves from the crowd? And that book was, you know, my background is just from a management consultancy. And I was taught at a very early stage in my career to looking into asking just in easy words, is there any rocket science? And if I read Dennis' book, and I've imagined that isn't just rocket science. What these best of the best families around the globe are doing, have implemented for their multi-generational continuity. And also how they solve the strategic choke points. Maybe if you have seen one of my previous videos on the Rockefeller habits, to the choke points. If you don't have it, it's clearly recommended. And I will put a link in the show notes. They have trained themselves and educated themselves to dominate and to control these strategic choke points. A choke point, for instance, is just these succession or these transition. It is also the power transition, but also the structure of the family, the professionalization of the family, the roles, and responsibility. So, and then if I've read Dennis' book, I put Jim Collins' books in the hand. Maybe you know the books from Jim Collins, From Good to Great, Great by Choice, Built to Last, and also the Flywheel concept. And surprise, surprise, there are so many parallels between these books. Why are these parallels? I mean, it's easy to understand. In corporation or an enterprise, that is just a cohort of individuals. And the family itself is a cohort of individuals. Yes, you will be argued that in the families you have a lot of emotions. Yes, you have a lot of emotions, but you have in an enterprise, in a corporation, also a lot of emotions. The question was arise, okay, how I can neutralize this a little bit and have just a meta perspective on it and come to a conclusion. Is it just even better to run a family as an organization with an operating system, like an enterprise? Maybe you are familiar with the term. We call it in so many descriptions and in so many discussions, the enterprising family or the family enterprise. And we call it also, if there is no operating system, no operating company in the hand of the family, they are only concentrated to operate with the wealth what they have accumulated. We call it also an enterprising family. And what I've recognized was also that these newer generation, they are very familiar with working in systems, these Gen Zs and these millennials. They are not looking for doing things by chance, because the history have taught that if you are doing things by chance, there's a greater chance to fail. And also, if you're doing things by chance or challenges, I mean, there are so many things that you should be handled, and it costs a lot of energy, and maybe it's a great resource of conflict. That's one part. The second part is, and one main component, and I will share a little story with you, was a very interesting discussion with a second-gen inheritor, a son, with a family with significant wealth. And we had a discussion back and forth about the legacy. And he said to me, and listen, the legacy itself is a very, very selfish thing. Because the parents or the grandparents have put a lot of ego inside of this legacy stuff. And there's a lot of relationships, there's a lot of emotions, and yes, there's a lot of expectations. And he said to me, I was asking myself, is this legacy what my father have created? Is this aligned with my own projection for the future? And he comes to the conclusion, no. Because he said also, the legacy itself, it is just in many families, it was also in his family, often the reason for many, many deep conflicts. Or other colleagues will be taught that the legacy itself is just a burden. And he was asking himself, if we as a family face an increasing competition, because we will see more and more families around ourselves with significant wealth, what can we do that we have multi-generational continuity and multi-generational impact? He said to me, if you are looking only that, I mean, that is what the history have taught us, in regards of the legacy, that your name will be only behind your legacy, then he said to me, there's a great chance that in the fourth and the fifth generation, then your name will disappear, because if the family is growing and you have a lot of daughters, it's clear that your name will be disappear. You can like it and you don't like it. The question is just more, what do you want to change? Or in other words, in his words, what is actually our family standing for over generations? What we want to change? What is the purpose and what is the deeper sense of the money what we have? And he was also asking the question, he said to me, Jan, listen, take a look in the environment. How many legacies are actually successful? Ask yourself, how many legacies are actually successful over generation? Very, very few. So, but if you want to dive deeper in that kind of topic, I've made also a video, a YouTube on this. I put a link in the comments, and then you can watch also the term. If you are interested in regards, is it just even better to have a legacy, or is it just even better that you have a lineage impact? The lineage, your family, what is the impact what you want to produce? So coming back to the point. So, and I was asking myself, okay, is it possible to, if each enterprise, if each corporation use actually an operating system, is it just possible that each family have also an operating system? That you have in a corporate world language, there is, maybe you know it, there's a balanced scorecard system. What is a balanced scorecard system? Just in easy words. Can you imagine you're sitting in a plane and you're sitting in a cockpit, and you're looking at all your instruments, and you can, if you're looking to your instruments, you know exactly what kind of attitude, you are in the right direction, you're on the right course, is there enough fuel, and stuff like that. Why is it impossible that each family have the same? Each family should have an operating system. Each family should have what I've called a balanced scorecard system, like an enterprise, that you are in control what you are doing, that you are in control, that you are on the right attitude, that you are in control, that you're on the right direction. It is necessary? Yes, it is necessary. And coming back to the point, I will bring in front of you these strategic choke points that each family face, and how these strategic choke points can be solved through a family operating system. And I will bring these choke points once again in front of you. The first choke point is this power transition, how these power transferred from one generation to the next. I've called it just a navigated succession, a navigated transition, not by chance, not too late, and maybe not jumping in the water and learn to swim. That's just a great chance of failure. And I use in the family operating system it three-phase framework: the diagnose, the alignment, and the empowerment. And I give you just a little example. Why is this so important? Ask yourself, do you have a training or a lab situation, educational program in your family that the rising gen, the daughter or your son, can train to take over the power, to map up the power, to map out each stakeholder, to train, to positioning them, your son, themselves just in the family system, to positioning themselves in the family office? Is there anything else what your son, what your daughter can use? Or maybe if you are in the position as a rising gen, do you have something available? Yes, I know there are a lot of workshops available. at universities, but also in business schools. But jumping over the gap from learning to executing, to train something, to train communication. What is the right path of communication? Because the power transition itself, it's the most critical point in the transition. If it's failed, it is not a good result in the end of the day. So ask yourself, the power transition, is there anything else what each of your family members can use to train in a lab situation? Choke point number 2, the governance vacuum, and what I called is a sovereign governance architecture. The point is just, and it is also a very strong and important part in this family operating system, that you plan your present and the future of your family from the future and not from the past. What many families are doing, they're planning the future from the past. What you're doing is that you repeat your past one again and again and again and again, and then it comes to a conflict. Legacy versus lineage impact. What is your impact model? What is what you want to achieve? And I have taken an overview in one of my latest videos to these strategic choke points, and I will end on this point on this. What I want to give you just an overview is just the core framework of these family operating system. And why is it so important to consider to have something? Why is it so important that if you have just a family operating system, something will be just even easier or simpler? I will give you just an overview over the 5 stages of these family operating systems. So coming back to the point, the reason why I've developed this is just to not to put you as a family is in blueprint. No. What I want to give you is just in framework with strong pillars, and the pillars itself can architect by yourself, because each family have their own character, their own uniqueness and stuff like that. But ask yourself, uniqueness will be end on the point that you have points that you can compare yourself to others. Like an enterprise, like in corporation. Yes, each enterprise, each corporation is unique, but you can compare each enterprise and each corporation on revenue, on profits, on human resources and stuff like that. Market regions, you name it. The question is just even to ask, okay, what are the main critical points that we came to in greater cohesion, to more power? And is this what we have as an systematic approach bring us this just even faster to the goal what we want to achieve? So here is stage number 1 from the what I've called the sovereign family operating system, the 5 stages. Stage number 1 is the foundation of the sovereign family operating system. Just like if you want to build up a house, you start with the ground foundation. And maybe it is good in some cases repeatedly to look in the foundation. Is it fragile or is it strong? And the main key models of these stage number 1 is the sovereignty charter. Yes, what are your values? But also, what are the unspeakables at this time? What is it actually? I'm quite convinced there are a lot of unspoken things they are not communicated at this time. What's the constitution of your family? What kind of power transition engine do you have implemented? Great question. Or do you do the transition of power by chance? Is it structured Because if the power transition is done today, you're standing in front of the next power transition because the next generation is waiting. Because also consider, that is one important point, what I've also observed is we are taught that one generation maybe is between 25 and 30 years. But we are standing in front that this period of time will be shrinked. It will be normal that the normal generational period of time will be between 15 and 20 years. And what does this mean? It's just you have more generations sitting on the table. And it is necessary that you can have a system available to coordinate, to navigate your family. Just like even an enterprise, just like even in corporate. You have different divisions in your corporate. You have the board, the second, the first, and stuff like that. It's just even the question, okay, how do you coordinate and navigate all these individuals through your strategy, through your mission? The next key model is the family governance and decision architecture. What I've recognized is, maybe you have recognized this as well, is just the governance description or the term is a very big word. And in many cases, ask 10 individuals what is actually governance, and there's a great chance that you will get more than 20 responses. From my perspective, governance is just, in easy words, how do you make decisions and how do you communicate? Because communication in our world, in my view in the world, communication is key. If you don't communicate, you can't make decisions, and vice versa. What kind of roles, what kind of responsibilities, what kind of words do you have implemented in your family or want to implement, that you have a strong communication framework? The lineage impact framework. What is the thing what you want to achieve to change? What is your lineage impact? Not your legacy. What is your lineage impact? A critical point is in this stage number one, it's what I've called the family intelligence unit. Have in mind what I bring up to you as an example, these balanced scorecard system. Maybe if you are an entrepreneur or a business owner, you are familiar with this. And this balanced scorecard system itself can provide you foresights. Make it just as an example for your family. What kind of black swan events waiting around the corner for you? Do you aware of this? Yes or no? What kind of information do you have? What is your brand reputation? What is your identity? And how these compare to your decisions? What kind of decisions insights do you have? And what I mean by this is, do you have access to the right advisors to bring the right information for your decisions in front of you? The family flywheel, what I've called, is also implemented in the foundation. What is the family flywheel? That is just an adaptation what Jim Collins have described in his book, The Flywheel. And the flywheel is one main product from great by choice and good, from good to great. And I'll give you just a snapshot on this. The flywheel is actually step number one, unity. Step number two, governance. Step number three, impact. Step number four, reputation. Step number five, opportunities, and then unity. That is just the flywheel, that you are in an repeated, active, and you can look, are we on course? Are we on the right attitude? It's very profound. It is very interesting to implement that kind of flywheel. Stage number 2 is just the expansion and the continuity flywheel. And what I mean by this is just the goal is just that you as a family move from stability to influence and expansion across generation in regards to the impact what you want to achieve. It is just like, even if you are in corporation, if you're just an enterprise, you have a growth strategy, maybe, to acquire more market shares, you want to grow. It's the same with your family, because you grow as a family over generations. And the key elements, and I will take it short, is just the capital alignment. For what is the capital actually used for? What is the influencing architecture? What is it what you want to positive influence? What is it? Through your knowledge, through your skills, and also through your impact. What is it actually? Very precise. What's the lineage impact engine that you put these impact what you want to achieve in repeated actions? Or in other words, is this what you are doing today? Is this a payoff what you want to achieve over the next 5 or 10 years? Or is it just even, excuse me for this, nonsense? Do you have in your family just a sovereign talent and rising gen academy? That comes back to the point what I mentioned. These lab situation or these training program for the generation who want to take over the power. It is also necessary that the other family members have access to the right knowledge, to skills, that your family grow and thrive through knowledge and to skills. That is a very important point to distinguish yourself from others. Do you have a continuity and a crisis playbook? What will be happen if the black swan is in front of you? Do you have access to other sovereign families? Do you sit down, or there's a great quote, and I will share it with you. If you have access to other or smarter people, smarter families like yours, that is a great opportunity for growth. The question is, do you have access to the right and the best families? They are on the same level or above from you? Or do you go in the forefront to create a new peer organization that you can learn and build up a league of other sovereign families? And coming back to the point, maybe you've seen my video from yesterday. What is actually a sovereign family? A sovereign family is just the top of the food chain. To make it clear, do you build alliances with other families, not only for co-investing, but also to share experience, to share knowledge and stuff like that? The stage number 3, and I make it very short, is the civilization design. And what I mean is just the goal of this stage is just, how do you transform your family into a civilization's institution? Maybe it's a little bit hard, but that's actually the goal. If you're growing, you act as an institution, if you want. A sovereign family is an institution, a professionalized institution. And the main point is, if you're acting just as a civilization's institution, then you have cultural, social, and historical permanence. Stage number 4 is the sovereign league and meta continuity, and it is just the goal through this stage is just we go from the ground foundation, first, second, and fourth. It's just to create an alliance of sovereign families as a parallel continuity infrastructure for humanity. And stage number 5 is just the sovereign legacy beyond families, or the impact beyond families. And the goal of this is just to move beyond family and lead to shape the next civilization layer. What I mean by this is just what is waiting around the corner for us as a society. I'm quite convinced that the families, your family office, you have a lot of power in your hand and you have the capability to change something for the good. And also to solve many of our big problems. I mean, I guess you're aware of this. The question is actually, if you don't have a strong family, you don't have just in strong lineage impact. But if you have a very professionalized, strong, sovereign family, I'm quite convinced you have a lot of impact over generation, over centuries, on a continuity base. So maybe that is a short spotlight for you to consider. If you want, I have a short PDF for you. And if you want to have these PDF, all these descriptions from the family operating system, also from the choke points, I'm more than happy to share this with you. Please put a comment in the show note and I will reply and I will send the PDF to you, and you can have this for internal discussions in your family, with your family office and stuff like that. And here is my last point for you. From the 4th to the 7th of November, there is the League Creating Summit in Norway. That is just 4 family teams come together and co-architect. That's what I've bring in front of you, these family operating system. All these families are from the newer generation. The newer generation or the rising gen have taken over the leadership or is on a transition to take over the leadership. And all of them have the desire, maybe the wish, to structure themselves for multi-generational continuity, stronger as they was in the past, stronger for lineage impact. 3 days, we sit together and we co-create for each family the core framework, architect the framework of the family operating system. And the outcome of this, each family go at home with a clear implementation path and plan for the next 6 and 9 months to bring also the goal closer, not waiting for the next decade, for the next 20 years, to make it closer in regards of impact, but also to professionalize the family. If you want more information on this, I'm happy to share this with you. Please put me a short notice in the comments and I will also share the information with you on this. Maybe it was helpful for you. It was a little bit longer as you are seen, or as you are familiar in the previous YouTube videos from myself. But that is my mission, to help families to become a sovereign family. With a greater cohesiveness, with more power, with a greater influence, a positive influence, stay more relevant with greater significance. Until next, be great.